Welcome to the podcast. I am joined by the lovely Sherry today. We have worked together. We were trying to work this out for 2.5 years, and Sherry has taken her wings and she's off in the big wide world now. And I've just asked a select number of people that I've worked with over the years to come on the podcast and just share your journey because the other day we were having conversations and Sherry's saying, "What do you want me to share about?" And I want to hear a little bit about why you decided to join Release. But as you said, so much time has gone by that that's a bit of a distant memory. And that's something that I've really been highlighting with people is that, yes, I start people off working through their past, but then we all of a sudden have this transition point and we don't really know where it happens, but we start talking about the future. So I would love to take people on your journey, Sherry, as to where you were, where you are now. Maybe where you were in the past is just a very small part of it, but let's just see where we go with this raw and unedited podcast. But tell us who you are, where you're from, and what do you do with your life?
Hi, I'm Sherry Lacroix. I am in Red Deer, Alberta, Canada. I found gin on one of my walks in my neighborhood one day. I'm a wife and a mother, and most recently, I have become an energy worker.
Brilliant. And yeah, your
Yeah.
energy work is fascinating. And I always book in for your monthly sessions. And I love it because I can just receive it whilst I'm sleeping and then I get your little updates the next day. So, yeah, you found me on a podcast when you were walking around one of your beautiful lakes, I think.
Just in my neighborhood,
Oh,
just down the street. I just have my loop that I did. Started walking during that time 4 years ago, when everybody was kind of going crazy, and I just needed to kind of, I don't know, I had some health stuff going on, and I was just looking at podcasts and came across an interview you had done. I can't even remember which podcast it was on, Jen. And it totally led me to your podcast and then to your website and then into your world.
excellent. So, can you tell us a little bit about what were some of the health issues and what was going on in your life all those years ago?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's a bit of a distant memory, but I have autoimmune hypothyroid and a number of allergies and food sensitivities and some arthritis that doesn't really bother me too much, but it's there. And just like these aches and pains and migraine headaches and all these different things. And I kept thinking, like, I'm going to all the practitioners and it's not getting better. It's getting managed, but it's not getting better. And I kept thinking, like, there has to be something else.
Hmm.
So I was searching through podcasts to listen to what is out there in the podcast world. And yeah, I came across you. So, and it was fascinating to see the correlation between what's happening in your body and what's stored in your body. Because up until that point, I didn't realize that um, your emotions get stored in your body. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
so, do you recall what came up for you, what messages came through from the experiences of having your health issues through the release process?
Um, no.
Well, I can share a little bit. I can share a little bit from my memory. But that's the thing is that sometimes we just get so caught up in our past and yeah, for you now, it's just such a distant memory and you're just
It
moving
really is.
forwards in the world and you've really stepped out. So I've been sharing your testimonial whenever I do masterclasses with people. So I say that once upon a time you were a bookkeeper who had autoimmune Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and you had some arthritis in your hands. And also, we'll talk about the Raynaud's that came up a little bit later.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that you've worked with me ongoing over the last couple of years, which is amazing. And it's just so incredible to see where you're at now. And yeah, one day you just popped up and said, by the way, my Hashimoto's, my thyroid stuff has actually calmed down. We just kind of forgot, we stopped focusing on the health issues. And it was when I got you to do or actually, no, let's pause there. So there was stuff about how I would always highlight to you, Sherry, it's like, can I talk about you? I want to know about what's going on for you. What do you need? So your attention was going elsewhere. Where was your attention and
Yes.
energy going?
Anywhere but me, pretty much. I was the one that was looking after everybody. My daughter was in high school during COVID, and that was really, I mean, COVID was difficult for everybody, but being in grade 11 and 12 during it was really, really difficult. So, of course, my focus as a mom was where it needed to be, and supporting my husband through his work stuff and his family stuff, and supporting my parents through some things as well. And yeah, it was just like you pointed out, it was never about me.
Mm. And when we've got stuff going on around us, if we really want to help those people, we have got to make ourselves a priority and work on
Mhm.
ourselves. And when we change, it just has such a ripple effect. And thankfully, you actually took that on board because some people would just feel like this is in my nature. You're telling me to go against this. But you listened and you started to shift the priority and attention onto yourself and share more about yourself. And you just started sharing these crazy stories about, things landing for your parents and your partner's parents and so on. Can you share anything about that?
Well, the other thing that came up when you were just talking about that, Jen, was it was like trying to control the chaos all the time, like just keeping things where I could manage them instead of just kind of letting it go and let people do what they needed to do, and me control or not control, but just manage myself and see what needed to be done with me. And once I did that, the chaos kind of stopped. So you're not focusing on the overwhelm and the chaos anymore. So you don't have to create it. You kind of self-create it, right? Because that's what you're used to doing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And this really is a process of letting things go and embracing the new, and embracing change can be quite challenging for people. But
Yeah.
there were lots of things that were happening for yourself and your family and other people around you where it's like, oh, this would take months. But then your parents were getting appointments for surgery. The surgery is going really well. It
Yeah.
was just happening within a really short period of time. So you were really
Yeah.
manifesting for them as well.
Yeah, it did. And it was interesting because that all kind of happened after I went to the wellness retreat in Banff, where I actually took a weekend for myself, which I had never done before. And it was, I mean, if you've been to Banff, Canada, you know it's an investment to go to Banff. And it was when I started investing in myself that my life started to change, and that had the ripple effect into everybody else's lives as well. So yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Well, the other
Yeah.
thing, just to
And
prompt you.
everybody's doing well health-wise now. So it's all
Yeah,
good.
I know. It's amazing, including yourself.
Yes, yes.
So something that I say
And
about thyroid issues that I've noticed, because it is a pretty common autoimmune thing that people come and work on in, say, release or on an emotional level, is that it is very much about speaking the truth. Now, I kind of cringe when I say this because I feel like this is just so vague, but it really is. It's in your throat chakra. It is about having a choice. It is about speaking up, not telling lies. And I remember, beyond when we sort of hit a bit of a transition point about processing your emotions in the past, we've got to then start focusing on your future. And I had you do a vision exercise. And I love reading this. I'm reading it a lot of what's coming up in the new round of Embody. And I'm like, wow, you've done this, you've done that. And I remember reading yours going, Sherry, you do energy work? When are you going to tell us all that you're an energy healer? And you said, oh, yeah, I kind of like do it here and there for friends. And I asked you, is this actually something that you want to step into? And you said, yes. And I asked you when. Why not now? Because actually, off the back of release, you quit your job. What was your job back then?
So I was a bookkeeper, and it was the perfect setup because I worked from home, and the information was just put on a drive and I just had to enter it. Um, but I felt my time wasn't being respected in that job where things were just dumping on the day before the deadline that it had to be done. And I just decided that that was enough and I didn't have to deal with that anymore.
Mm.
So it was even before release was done, I quit.
Oh, okay.
I did it. Yeah. I can't remember at what point in the program it was, but I remember I ran into some friends at a coffee shop and I was telling them about this. They're like, "Oh, what are you up to?" I hadn't seen them in a while, and I was telling them, and then I'm like, "But I just feel like they're not respecting my time and all this stuff." And then I was like, "Well, then why am I doing it?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it was yeah, so I just let that one go, and then you coaxed me into stepping into what I really needed to be doing. So,
Yes, because I often tell people now don't make any big moves or decisions. And these are things like breaking up from relationships, quitting a job, starting a new job, um, moving house, buying, selling, all that kind of stuff. But of course, there are some people that still do it, like yourself.
yeah,
But what I really love
yeah,
is that you created that space and you did say yes to actually working on yourself, um, to, yeah, just really open up your world. So tell us a little bit about the energy work and stepping into that. You call it stepping out of the spiritual closet.
yes. Oh, I was firmly in the closet, firmly, because yeah, I had issues around it because when I did treatments on myself, it didn't feel like when my mentors had done treatments on me. So I felt like I wasn't doing it right. I didn't have the confidence in it, but I've since learned that my gifts are different than their gifts, so the treatments would never be the same. Um, but yeah, I had taken my Reiki level. Well, I had one and two for sure, and possibly three by the time I worked with you. And then I had my there's another modality called Metatronia, that works with Archangel Metatron that I am attuned to as well. And since then, I've become a certified access bars practitioner. And I just recently got my Angelic Reiki certification. So it's interesting when I'm working on people because, like at Reiki, the traditional Reiki never quite resonated with me, but it certainly opened the door to something I didn't know was there. Um, and the other modalities just all kind of work very nicely together. So my guides will come in and just, you know, guide me through a treatment as I'm working on somebody. So when I'm doing access bars on somebody, when I'm touching their head, I may feel stuff in my throat. So then I'll clear some energy from their throat or often the heart space or wherever, or feel something in my left ankle, for example, and just go clear down there and then come back to the bars and continue on. So it's been really interesting. Every single treatment is different. And it's people just seem to really enjoy it. And the clients that I have are just really they're people that are ready to work on themselves and they know that they just need that extra little bit of help to release stuff that they don't need to carry, but they don't know how to get rid of it. And this is just a nice, gentle way of doing it. And they're just amazing people.
I want to ask you a little bit about your personal journey, like what, because there's a lot of people who desire to get into the healing space and they don't even know where to start. So can you take us through a little bit about, what drew you towards energy healing? What was the steps that you took? I love that you also questioned yourself, like, oh, I feel it differently to how my mentors and my teachers feel it. And really, when we get into energy healing or any modality, I believe we've got to bring our own intuitive gifts to it. So,
Exactly.
did you notice that you had a gift, or yeah, take us through that?
Yeah. Okay. So take me back. I'll take you back to my childhood.
Yeah, cool.
Um,
I don't think I know this story.
I Yeah, well, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when I was young, we lived in British Columbia. And I remember like I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would see the silhouette of a man leaning against the door watching me sleep. And it never creeped me out. I named him George. And like I was just so comfortable with it that I had never even told my parents about it until I was like in my 20s and we were I don't know, at my aunt's house talking about ghosts or whatever. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, we had one in Williams Lake. He used to watch me sleep. And my mom was like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, I just thought you knew. Like he was there all the time. I just thought you knew, kind of thing, right? Um, but I was also always very sensitive. So when I was around a large group of people, it would be kind of overwhelming. But when you're a kid, you don't know that other people don't feel that, right? So I just thought my parents knew. And I always needed a lot of time to myself. I always needed a lot of sleep when I was growing up. Um, and then, yeah, as we progressed through the years, that kind of was always there. And then at some point, I had kind of shut it down a little bit because I just like I literally felt everything. I was a sponge, and I didn't, kind of now that I'm thinking back, when I was in my earlier 20s, I actually had to take time off work to recover from being too overwhelmed. And I probably never told you that either. Kind
No,
of forgot
but this
about
is
that.
this is so helpful for people to
Yeah.
perhaps identify a little bit like, oh, maybe I'm shutting my gifts down as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I didn't know I had gifts, right? Like I just thought, like, how
Yeah.
do people survive? Like even going to get groceries was overwhelming sometimes because there's just so much energy there and people have anxiety. And when you're a sponge, you feel it and all that kind of stuff. So, um, anyway, fast forward, I don't know how long. And my health kind of started to tank, and I was getting allergies. I was getting to be allergic. I always kind of had these weird rashes that would just pop up, but it was always when I was like overwhelmed or stressed or whatever. And I started getting more and more of those, and started to have a lot of food sensitivities and like more allergic reactions to just random things and then lucky me, I got like dizziness and like it wasn't quite vertigo because that's the crystals in your ear, but it was like tried to sit up in bed one day and the whole room was spinning, and like it lasted for months, and I would go to the doctor and they'd say, oh yeah, there's fluid in your ear, but there's no infection, it'll drain. And it's like, but it's been months. Like it was just, there was no answer. And a friend of mine had taken Reiki, and she's like, oh, like I just learned this. Do you want a treatment? And I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but yeah, sure. What the heck? And it was the first time I had actually got relief from that dizziness. And it was amazing to be able to walk without, kind of being off balance or whatever. And so then I thought, well, I have to take this. Like, what is this magic? I need this. So I took my level one, and it was quite profound.
Can I just ask, how old were you when you
Yeah.
stepped into this? Because some people feel like I'm too old to do this.
Oh, I was in my late 40s.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, mid to late 40s. Late 40s. I'll be honest, I was in my late 40s. Um, so I took my level one, and it was quite like when I was working on people in the practice session, I was seeing these vivid images. Like I saw one lady, I saw like this DNA helix when I was working on her heart, and she's like, "Oh, I have a genetic defect in my heart." And it's like, whoa, like that was like these things were just so clear. But then I didn't trust myself
Mm.
with it, and I didn't tell anybody I took the course. I just like it was very much a me thing. Did it just for me. I wasn't going to work on anybody else. I did it just for me. Um, but in the meantime, taken, I had found a lady on Facebook that was relatively local. She's just a couple hours north, and she did these distance treatments. And I'm like, well, I wonder what that's about. So I tried it. And like, I thought my Reiki treatment was amazing. Well, this was like beyond amazing. So then, of course, I grabbed the information to do that for myself because
What
that
was
was
it?
even more. That was the Metatronia.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the book, and it was a self-study, but it was Reiki was kind of very structured, which I appreciated. And Metatronia was very esoteric. So it was all just channeled to a lady in England. So it didn't have a lot of structure to it. And it was very much, well, Metatron will, you'll find your way to work with Metatron kind of thing. And so that went on the shelf because I didn't trust myself. And then a few more years went by, and I was like, well, I really want to finish this stuff because it's kind of driving me crazy. So I got my Reiki level two, and then Reiki level three, and then I got my attunement to Metatronia. I finally finished that, and then started doing a little bit on friends and stuff just to see, and was getting really good feedback. And then when we were in, well, it must have been in Embody, it wouldn't have been in Release. Um, when I came out of the closet to you, I had approached you privately and said, like, can I try this on people if they're interested? And everybody snapped it. Of course, he said yes. And everybody like snapped at the chance. And so I was figuring out time zones because I'm over here on this side of the world, and, people were everywhere. And yeah, I had just absolutely amazing feedback from people. So it just was kind of like, okay, well, maybe I am actually meant to do this stuff. So
And what did it feel like to actually step out and offer it outside of a safe group container that you were in?
terrifying,
Yeah,
absolutely
but you did it
terrifying. Yeah,
anyway, and I love
I
that.
did it anyway. Yeah, and now people pay me for it. So
Yeah.
it's,
And you've been exploring doing in-person work. You've gone to, um, do you call it festivals or expos? And you've
yeah,
stuff, haven't you?
markets. Yeah, we kind of call them markets here. So I would just rent a table I have some mini sessions that I do that take about 20 minutes, and people have really good results. I volunteer at a mental health organization in town. So I work on the people that help the people, and I go there once a month, and they just absolutely love it. I've had fabulous feedback from those employees there. So it's funny because that's like one of my favorite days of the month is when I go there to help them, just because they just like the gratitude that they have. And they're like, why are you working on us? And I said, well, because if we can increase your capacity to help the people, then you're going to help the people more. So
Yeah, beautiful.
it's, and yeah, yeah. So
And
it's
so
just been really,
how do you feel doing this work now, having been a bookkeeper a handful of years ago, dabbling in energy work, and now actually this is the thing that you do, this is what you offer. Like, how does that feel?
kind of strange actually, because I've always, like my whole life, I've been very, very structured. And this was anything but structured. I have no idea what the session is going to be like. Um, and it's literally, the day before I go somewhere, I'm pulling cards and getting my crystals. And I mean, this is stuff I didn't believe in. But like a crystal, they're rocks, right? They're rocks. And now it's like, oh, I love my crystals. I can't be without them. But it's just, I mean, night and day, right? From what it was before.
Yeah. And I remember, yeah, you said, hey, by the way, my Hashimoto's, my autoimmune thyroid stuff has stabilized. But then you
Yeah.
started to get some Raynaud's, and I want to ask about the food sensitivities as well, like so much about the health stuff that entered you into this world. And yes, you'd already been doing the energy healing, but no one really knew about it. Um,
Yes.
so with the Raynaud's, because I share about how you used to get Raynaud's. It gets very cold where you are. It's a very painful vascular condition. So sections or whole fingers can go white and yeah, be very painful. I'm curious, do you remember which fingers used to get affected?
I think it was my index finger on my left hand.
Hmm.
And it would go white to like my second knuckle.
Okay, because the index fingers are your judgment fingers, and you know well and truly that whenever we're working in release and even the ongoing stuff like in body, most people are blocked in their base, sacral, and their solar plexus, the lower three chakras. So I say that base chakra, not many people that work with me actually have true sense of survival, as in they've got their basic needs covered. But usually, where they're a little bit off is they're not living a life by their values, meaning they're not setting boundaries, they're saying yes to too much, they're not embracing a no or being able to receive a no. And then the sacral chakra, we work a lot on the relationships, but ultimately we're tapping into desire energy, to desire free of guilt and to access our creativity, but then actually let that come into fruition and be expressed to the world. So solar plexus is all about our identity role in the world and stepping into expressing our truth. But the biggest thing that holds people back is fear of judgment and criticism. And usually, including myself, once upon a time, we are the people who judged others, and that can be the thing. There's this saying, one finger pointing to others and three pointing back to you, is that usually our judgment of others in the past is what holds us back. And then we fear other people judging us. But that's what we've got to let go of and take responsibility and be like, okay, that was me once before. I apologize for that. And say that the remedy to judgment is to simply be curious. So you had the Raynaud's that came up, but no more. So what happened?
No. Well, it's interesting because through release, you talk about like there's the lesson on the chakras and and then like the organ clock as well. And I was having trouble, like so many other people, I had trouble sleeping. And so you're like, well, look at the organ clock and see when it was. And it always, well, not always, but it was often at the liver time. So I started to really look into how to support my liver through nutrition and through other things like castor oil packs and stuff like that. And I mean, that was key because I'm like, well, of course, the allergies would be affected by a congested liver because it can't filter the stuff out. And then thyroid hormones are converted in the liver as well. So of course that's going to be out. So there was just in release, there was so many little nuggets that we don't even realize until we look back after so long to see, oh, that's when I learned about that. And even just the chakras and the emotions and the organs, which organs hold what emotions and stuff like that. And when I talk to people about that, they're like, oh, that's why that's always
Mm,
painful, right? That's why I always have that gallbladder pain or, in the area of the gallbladder because it's
yes.
resentment or whatever. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's so
that's
interesting
been
because
really
actually
interesting.
you talk about the liver and I call it the organ of anger. And most people think of anger in the harmful way. And that's usually why they come to do the work. But then we've got to transmute the unhealthy anger or the harmful anger to healthy anger, which is the transformative, the fire that actually helps you create and take your ideas into something tangible, which is what I see
Mhm.
is your energy work. So I talk to a lot of people that ultimately this work is about uh, connecting in with your soul purpose. So do you feel that you're connected in with your soul purpose and living that out? Amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know that
And
in the groups that I've been in with you, people are like, I want to be like Sherry, like she knows her purpose. And so that's why I love hearing about the journey that you've gone on,
so
the
funny.
fears,
Yeah.
the hesitation that you had. And yeah, did you ever think that you would be inspiring other people to,
No,
step out of the spiritual closet and, do what
no,
you're doing?
no. I mean, I'm just a regular mom, right? Like I was a stay-at-home mom who just did a little bit of work part-time and stuff. And yeah, but it's the other thing, Jen, that's coming up, because I'm, just a mom. I mean, you're never just a mom, but um my daughter is a grown up now, and she was offered a promotion at work, and she had texted me one night and she's like, "Can I call you after work?" And I'm like, of course, is everything okay? Of course you can call me. Is everything okay? And she's like, "Yeah, I was just offered a promotion and I just want to talk to you about it." And because of the work that I did with you, our conversation was like completely different than it would have been, because I didn't sit there and tell her, "Yeah, you should take it," or "No, you shouldn't take it." I gave her different points to think about. Like, well, how do you feel about that? And well, what about this? And well, that gives you an opportunity to grow in that area. And well, yeah, maybe this isn't where you want to be for the rest of your life, and that's totally cool. But, where can you grow in different areas to, so that you can flourish later on, right? To see what else is out there that you might
Yeah.
enjoy doing. So it's just, the communication aspect between her and I, and between my husband and I, and my parents, everybody has just been 100% different than it
I love
was. Yeah.
I love that you
Yeah.
share that because, again, it's like, well, processing emotions is just a small part of this journey. And I don't want anyone to come into release thinking everything's going to change in 6 weeks. And of course, we see some remarkable results and changes in 6 weeks,
Yeah.
but it's then how do we build on that? Because, yeah, there's a lot of letting go, there's a lot of changes to embrace. Where are you at with your thyroid and your allergies now?
So my thyroid is still stabilized. And actually, um, I have to get it tested again next month, but I feel like my medication needs to be lowered. Like I
Mm,
think my dosage needs to be decreased because it's working better.
amazing.
And allergies, it's interesting. Before I started working with you in the spring and in the fall, I would be taking like up to 12 homeopathic allergy pills a day just to manage my symptoms. And I hardly took any. When there was forest fire smoke around, I took some. Um, oh, I used to have asthma, Jim.
Oh,
I
I
don't
know
know
this.
if I told you about that. And the asthma is more allergy induced. So
Mhm.
um, I hardly ever use my inhalers. I think even during forest fire season this year, I think I only used it once.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Your body is
Yeah.
able to handle all the stuff, all the chaos that's going on around you
Yeah.
without you having to fix it and get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that is self-care and listening to my body, and realize, like, actually listening, like when I eat something, how does that make me feel? And not just eating it out of habit or comfort or anything like that. It's actually listening to what my body needs and rebuilding that relationship with my body.
Mm. Can you share some stories with your energy healing? Any fascinating stories or shifts that you've experienced working with people?
Um, So, I mean, I think, let's see. I mean, they're all so different and everybody's story is so different. Um, I was working on a friend recently and her parents have passed away and they were trying to come through. But and I don't do mediumship. I have not developed in that area. So I didn't know how to engage with them when they came through. One of her parents came through to help lift out the grief that she had been carrying. I find it a lot of people behind their left shoulder blade is where they hold the grief. And it's happened a couple times where I've sensed the loved one come in to help lift that grief out for them because they don't need to carry it. And so that was quite fascinating and I had known, sort of known her parents. We met as adults, but I had met her parents a couple times. So it was just a really lovely experience to share with her. And of course, we had tears and all that stuff. And I suggested that she go see a medium because I thought that her parents had messages for her. So,
So how did
um,
they come through for you? How did you know they were
so
coming through?
it's interesting. I don't even know how to describe it, but I just feel it's not even that I feel like you will hear mediums talk about like, oh, I felt the presence on the left side or the right side, and it was, so many layers back. I don't feel that. I just have a knowing that, oh, so and so is here.
Hmm.
And then I use my pendulum quite a bit just as my double check. So I'll get my pendulum out and just like, is this really what's happening? And I'll get a yes. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, well, that's really cool. Um, Another really fun thing that happened when I was doing a session on somebody was their dog came in and this name popped into my head. And the way it popped in was really strange. And so I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, where did that come from? And I'm like, okay, I'll tell her kind of thing. And then after the session, when I was talking to her, I said, like, does the name whatever ring a bell? And she's like, oh, I had a dog named that. And I
Hmm.
said, oh, well, that makes sense because like the way the name came through, it was like barking. I'm like, oh, because it was just like this, dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I've never had a dog come through before. So
Yeah, just the
that's
way the confirmation comes through. And I feel like that was similar with my journey as well. It's like, gosh, I feel like this is going on for people. And it actually took me quite a few years to be able to put words behind what I was feeling or, as you say,
yes,
knowing. So I know it can be quite challenging when you
yes,
start working with energy. And, we've discussed this. It's like, how do I can't explain this. And so,
yeah,
yeah, people are just drawn to you as a person or just curious, and you're like, hey, just come and experience this with me. But I'm sure that you are going to find, you've done pretty well today, but I'm sure you are going to find more words to put behind your knowing, your feeling, and
yeah.
a lot of it will come through the stories that you share.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's fascinating to hear um, what people share with me during a session, and just the sense that I can get about somebody's personality. I was working on someone, and she seemed like she was just always joking and joking, and I said to her, I think you and I are a lot alike, where we kind of hide behind humor, and her face just completely changed, and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, but it like we have to feel everything. I said, it's that pendulum effect, right? Like you can't feel joy without feeling sorrow, and there's no light without darkness, and
Mm.
all of that kind of stuff. So it's just fascinating.
It is. I'm wondering, you were sharing about how as a child and growing up, you were just so sensitive and you felt everything. Is
Hmm.
How are you with that now? Are you able to put up
Well,
energetic boundaries?
Yeah, so now I understand what it is, but that took me till my 50s. So I tell everybody about it so they don't have to wait that long
Yeah.
to wonder why they can't go to the grocery store without having, not that was having panic attacks, but some people do.
Mm,
And it's just that it's that overwhelm and that feeling of taking on other people's stuff when you don't know. Um, so I think it was when I was working with one of your groups when my guides brought through the analogy of the coffee filter about how a lot of people in the spiritual world talk about shielding, and that's never resonated with me because you can't get anything through a shield. So you're shielding out the good and the bad. Um, but my guides told me about like, well, think of it as a coffee filter where you have your coffee filter and the grounds stay in the filter, but the good stuff comes through. And
mm.
you know, it's flexible. So I use my filter.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And then I can, because there are times when, you need to be there for somebody and experience what they're experiencing, whether it's good or bad or whatever. And of course, you want to celebrate people's joys and their
Mm,
happiness and their celebrations. So, um, yeah, it's really it's been a journey for sure to figure
yeah.
that out. Um, but it explains so much about why, well, no, I'm not going to Costco on a Saturday afternoon.
I'm glad you figured it out because I do believe there's lots of amazing healers out there, but that's probably one of the biggest things that stops them. And it's when people say, "Oh, I'm such a sensitive empath." And I'm like, yeah, but empaths are not meant to, get sucked into the
Yeah,
story and feel things in a negative way. Like you've got to be able to
yeah,
feel what's appropriate and then guide people. That's probably a bigger
yeah,
conversation. I'm wondering, you talked about
yes.
your guides.
Mhm.
Who are your guides and how did you access them?
Um, so I'm still building my relationship with my guides, and I don't have names for them. Um, I know a lot of people like they have names for their guides and they know like this guide is for this and this guide is for that. I don't have
That's
that
okay.
relationship with my
Oh, I think
guides.
this is great because some people would be like,
Yeah,
oh, no, I don't have my guides because I don't have names for them.
yeah. No, and like I think one time one of my guides said her name was Jennifer, and I'm like, okay, but like she's not my only guide. There's your guide there you have different guides for different things, and then there's also other, I mean, I call them beings
Yeah.
that step forward to assist you during different things. That it's kind of like having, a friend from grade 3, right? That you're not still necessarily friends with them, but they were a friend at a time.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's
Do,
been
do you see them?
really
Do you feel
interesting.
them? How do they come through? I'm curious.
Um, for me, it's just a knowing,
Yeah.
which is so hard to explain. Like some people will say, oh, I feel so and so when I feel something on my arm. And for me, I don't even necessarily sense a presence. I just know that they're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And sometimes the information just comes in so fast. I have to actually say, okay, like I need human words here. Like this is too fast. When I'm trying to talk to somebody about their session, and I'm just like, just hang on. I just have to wait for the human words to come in because I just
Mm.
get a feeling. I get the sense of what they want me to communicate, but
Mm.
I don't necessarily have words to
Yeah.
communicate it.
No, I understand. And I think the knowing is quite elusive to a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's like intuition. And we do all have access to intuition and knowing, but it is a journey to actually trust it. And sometimes we do seek validation, as in we might think of something and then the client might say something or a friend confirms it. And the more we can put ourselves into that environment and experience that pattern over and over again, it gives us evidence like, oh, there might be something here. Because yeah, I'm just fascinated by energy healers, those in, yeah, channels, mediums, and what comes through. And I know for me, working with some clients, there's definitely messages that just channel through. And I'm like, oh gosh, how am I talking so much to this person? I bet it's all different. And sometimes they're the ones that have it just like rattle off for them.
Yeah. And the other thing my guides will do when I'm working on somebody is they'll have like, I'll feel in my body where to work on your body, for example. So the
Mm.
first time that ever happened, I was at my volunteer thing, and it was someone I had worked on before, and she was cool with energy work. And I had this pain in like my back to the point where I could hardly stand up. And I was thinking, like, am I dying? Like, what's wrong with me here? Where is this coming from? It was like a knife in my back. And I finally said to her, like, do you get a pain in your back on the right side, like right by your rib cage kind of thing? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I
Not
like I
mine,
woke,
it's yours.
yeah, I was like, okay, now I'm not dying. Okay, this is good. So yeah, so I worked on her, and then like other people, it's like I'll be standing and it's like, why does my ankle hurt? Like I can hardly stand. Like nothing's like I didn't twist it or anything. And then I'll finally ask, like, do you have a pain in your left ankle? Or like, oh yeah, like I have to go get an MRI. I'm like, okay, well, let's just work on that. And
Yeah, so when you say we work on it, because once you identify, okay, it's not mine, it's someone else's, how do you work on it? This might be a bit tricky for you to explain.
yeah, so again, I just follow my intuition, but basically I just so okay, I'll back up a step. I act as a conduit. So I am not a healer. The healing, the energy comes through me to you. But if you're not ready to heal anything, I can't do that for you. So you are your own healer. I just help facilitate that process. So I act as a channel and energy just comes through me to you. So it comes through my hands. And if it's your ankle, I just put my hands on your ankle. And sometimes I'm guided to use a crystal like selenite, for example, or something else, sound or sage, um, just, kind of
Mm.
whatever I'm guided to do. And frequencies is another one. I've got a frequency device that I use that helps with healing. So that often comes into play.
You got lots of tools. Are
All kinds of little tools, yeah, all kinds of little things. But yeah.
you going to be traveling with them? Because we're going to be meeting soon. You're coming to New Zealand all the way from Canada. You're going to be traveling with your tools?
Well, I mean, I always have my hands with me.
Yes.
And the suitcases are pretty full. But yeah, I will be bringing my Healy because I love it so much. I won't leave it at home. And my crystals I'll probably leave at home because I mean, they're heavy. So, yeah, I mean, of course I'll have selenite, but I'm sure you have selenite as well. So,
I do. I've got plenty of crystals here. I'm curious
yeah,
to experience you in person because I've only
yeah.
experienced you online, and I love it every time you just reach out to me. I'm like, yep, I'll just book that in. I get to sleep, so I don't need to worry about resting during the day to receive my energy healing from you. So I really appreciate that you're doing what you're doing, and it's been so cool for me to be on the journey with you through all of these transitions. And we definitely did talk more about where you're at right now. And, as I'm listening to you, I am recalling some stuff that we worked on in release in embody, like some of the deeper stuff to process, but it's almost like, yeah, it's just such a distant memory.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of this, do you want me to talk about some of the stuff that we worked on?
Oh, if you're happy
Okay.
to, that would be great.
Yeah.
I find that I know that a lot of the stories that people share about being on release and doing the emotional work doesn't ever really go into the details because it can
Yeah.
be quite sensitive, which I absolutely respect. So, yeah, people do just come on to release or work with me out of a knowing and a feeling.
Yeah. And that was 100% for me as well. Um, and as I started down this journey of trying to figure out what was wrong with me, um, it was quite clearly that there was a lot of emotional stuff during a very short period of time. My husband and I had lost three babies, and my brother was taken in a car accident as well. And my husband's best friend had taken his own life as well during 2 years. All of that had happened. And we didn't know how to deal with it. So we both just kind of shoved it down and kept on, right? We had our daughter was our first pregnancy, and then the three after that. Um, we had lost, and actually the first one we lost at my brother's funeral.
Mm,
And it was really, really difficult. And nobody really knows how to provide support to somebody during that, because unless you've experienced it, you don't know how to support. And even if you have experienced it, you don't know how to support somebody because everybody's different. But um, it's one of those things that's just really difficult to talk about. And there's people that I know that I've been friends with for a very long time that don't know that part of my story.
mm.
So
Well,
yeah,
thank you for sharing it. And,
yeah, yeah,
it's when there is a lot of emotion, trauma for some, but I always say trauma is simply the stored emotion. It can be really hard to even access that in a release as well, can't it?
yeah,
But you did it.
yeah. I did. I did with some expert guidance.
Oh, it was really beautiful to, yeah, guide you through that and your willingness to go into that because I think that it's like, why is it that this keeps on coming up? But, we have these resistance points and in the personal development world, it's all very well versed that what we resist is often what helps us grow. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's, as you push things down further and further, things just compound, right? So
Mm,
you can compound good things or you can compound bad things, and why not compound the good? So,
yeah, absolutely. And oh, that's what you said to me. It's it was just all these little things that have accumulated to such big change over this period of time. And so you're so
yeah.
right. Sometimes we feel like the work's not working, but if we go in with a trust, a knowing, and a feeling, and we keep going, all of a sudden the time collapses, and then we've got these massive shifts. And then the
Hmm.
work really is in holding the energy of these big changes that we can bring into our life quicker and faster. Not that it's about going fast.
No, no, exactly. And I mean, things happen the way they need to happen, and your capacity is your capacity, but it's great on the other side to just be free of that feeling that it's kind of like you get stuck in that sorrow almost, right? And or you feel like you should be always missing that person or whatever. But knowing what I know now from my energy work, like they're always with you,
Yeah.
not in the physical form, but they're literally always with you. So my brother comes through to other mediums that I know all the time. And I mean, I'm sure when I lose something and I can't find it, I'm quite sure that he's hidden it on me.
Yes. I actually just did an interview with Gay Walker, who's someone that I've been working with, and she was a palliative care nurse. And I asked her to share some stories, and she also said that often ones who have passed over do little tricks like especially losing keys and losing bits and
Yeah.
pieces. Man, my friends always like tease me because I lose my wallet, lose my phone, I lose my keys. So I'm just wondering who's on the other side playing with me. Put air tags on everything, but I still can't find them. Sherry, what is your vision for the future? Where is it that you're heading?
Ah, I think just seeing where this is going to take me, quite honestly, we're quite happy with where we're at. And um, we would love to have a place with by the water in the mountains, and we'll see if that happens. But yeah, just continuing on and just loving life.
Beautiful. And you've got all this
Yeah,
travel on the cards. So,
yeah.
yeah, where else are you going apart from New Zealand?
French Polynesia.
Very exotic.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, spiritually, it's going to be quite amazing. So it's, yeah, I'm so looking forward to it.
Are there any last words of wisdom that you want to share with anyone, especially from your energy healing space?
Oh, it's okay to be you. Don't be who you think you should be. Be who you want to be.
Yeah, it's the easiest
Yeah,
way to be.
it is. But that's not what's really out there, right?
Yeah. No, if we can have more of us speaking our truth and yeah, stepping into our soul purpose, the world really will be a better place.
Hmm. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. And we don't all have to compete. There's enough of everything for everybody, and we can all be great, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because
Yeah,
we're all unique. Thank you
yeah.
so much for
Thank
sharing your
you.
story and where you've been over the last handful of years, where you are now. And of course, I look forward to seeing where you go. There's a lot of people that I've had on the podcast that I've worked with, and I'm like, oh, I need to do like, where are they now? Season or episodes, because yeah, a lot of people are in some pretty incredible places. Thank you, Sherry.
Well, thank you.